Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Things That Matter with me, Martie McNabb. If you've been following along for a while, obviously you are well aware at this point that I am absolutely fascinated with the stories of the things that matter. I actually was responding to an email today, and what I ended up realizing is in retrospect, when I started Show and Tales, hosting these in person and virtual story sharing gatherings about things that matter, it was people ask, why did you start it? Like, what? And I really didn't know exactly until looking back, right? Looking back on things. And what I realized is neither one of my parents were very good natural, quote unquote, born storytellers. They didn't just easily share stories. I couldn't ask them like a story prompt and they just open up and share everything. But if I handed them an object,
Mm.
they would just, the stories, their lives, their experiences, what mattered would just come flowing out. So that's actually looking back, that's why I started this. So, anyway, today I am excited to have it's taken us a little bit of time to get here, right? Because we're very well, I know in this last year, Melissa has been a very, very busy woman. And so we've had a hard time meeting up and making a time that worked, but I'm so thrilled that we're able to. And my guest today, Melissa Davey, I ended up meeting probably 2 years ago or knowing about 2 years ago. And it was, of course, as I've brought many guests here on this episode, through my lovely friend, our lovely friend Diana Place, who is the originator, the leader of the 333 Collective and Quest 2024. And that's actually where I met Melissa the first time was in person in Rhode Island at Quest 2024 and got a chance to preview and see an early release of her wonderful film, which she'll be able to share a little bit later in this. But of course, you know what happens next. I will turn over the stage to Melissa so that she can do the show and tell section of today's episode. So, without further ado, I am going to turn it over to you. Take it away, Melissa.
Hey there, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It's great to see you. And I look forward to seeing you again soon in person, which is a lot better than Zoom. I mean, I love Zoom, but let's face it, it's better in person. So, you have asked me to share something that matters to me. So many times you see people bring a rock and I do have rocks, heart-shaped rocks, or something small, a piece of jewelry or whatever. Mine is so big I can't hold it up to you. And it is actually behind me, but you can't see it because it's on the floor. So I'm going to show it to you right now, and hopefully you can all see this. Do you see it, Marty? Can you see that? Yes. Okay. So this, you're looking at a rug. And you would say, well, why on earth would a rug matter to somebody? Well, this rug has quite a bit of history. It is 100 years old, a little over 100 years old. It was made in Iran that long ago, and it was purchased by my grandmother, my mother's mother, 100 years ago. And if you can see it, you can see that it's really in good shape. And I remember it when it was a lot thicker. I remember as a child being on this rug, and it was probably 2 inches thicker than it is now. But for 100 years old, it's in great shape and it's wonderful. And I ended up with it just last year. And I'll tell you about how that happened and why it's so meaningful to me. My mom had this rug from her mother when her mother passed away. My mother passed away in March of 2024 at the age of 98. And this rug was in all the houses that we lived in, when I was younger, after my grandmother died. And it's been a part of my life forever. I can remember as a very small child crawling on this rug, playing on this rug. And then when it transferred to my mother, I would be at her house. Either I lived with her then as a youngster, or when I came back as an adult and it was still there in all the different, we moved a bit. So it's been in many, many different homes. But our ancestors and myself and my children and my grandchildren have all been on it as well. So every time I look at this rug, and I remember when my mom passed away in March of 2024, and I was thinking about, is there something that I want from her house? And that was the question she had for all of my siblings. Is there something that's meaningful to you that you want? Just take it. And I wasn't into the dishes or silverware or anything like that. And it was this rug that drew me in because I've known it since I was born. And every time I look at it, I think of all the ancestors, all of my ancestors, grandparents, great aunts, great uncles, all of the cousins, my parents, my siblings, my children, and now my grandchildren have all played on this rug, maybe spit up on this rug when they were babies. And, many of us have probably done that. Track dirt in on this rug. And I just think about the huge number of people related to me that are related to this rug. So it's so meaningful to me in that way. It's not only beautiful and a wonderful addition to my little family room here, but it reminds me of all of my relatives. And if you're an energy believer, which I am, their energy is still here. They walked on this, they sat on this, they played on this, and it's part of them. And they are part of this rug. The rug is part of them. And that's why it's so meaningful to me.
Okay, so let's see. Can you stop sharing?
Yes, I
There
can.
we go.
Hi.
Perfect. Okay, and we'll do this. Oh my God. I have to say, it is the first rug that anybody's brought to my episodes, and we're going on like 2.5, maybe 3 years so far. And you're absolutely right. We have people who bring lots of rocks. No, nobody's brought to any of my events. Nobody's brought a seashell. I find that
Ah,
fascinating,
oh,
but
that's interesting.
but tons of rocks. Um, and but this rug and your story about like your mom passed away. I'm so sorry for your
Thank
loss.
you. Thank you.
Little over a year ago, and but 98 years.
Hmm.
So she knew this rug since she
Hmm.
was a baby, since she
That's
was
right.
very young as well. Like when
That's
you're saying
right.
this is 100 years old, like 98, like wow,
Yeah.
it's really. And I did have one other person bring something of similar, the similar idea of how all their whole family over generations have connected. And it was a old wooden table, a
Oh,
dining
yeah.
room table. So it was that same thing. And I
Yes.
am so, and that's like why for me, I feel the same way where people are like objects, like things don't matter and whatever. And it's like I am a believer of the energy too.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's been touched, it's been held, it's been smelled, it's been walked on. There's DNA
Mhm.
in all of it. So like you said, the baby spit,
Right. Whatever it might be, it's
sweat.
all been on that rug, that's for sure. And I want to add one thing. We have a cat, as you do, and our cat looks like the cat you have in your window.
Yeah.
Um,
Really?
but anyway, as soon as we put this rug down a year year ago or whenever it was, our cat would, and still does, goes to a specific part of the rug, lays on it, and keeps rolling around. So, and we can't figure out why. And only in this one spot. And it's a big rug. It's 15 feet by 10 feet.
Yeah.
So she just keeps going there. And I'm like, what does she smell? And what
Right.
does, what is she picking up on? Because my mom had cats. So maybe a
Oh,
cat was there, or I don't
right.
know. But
Or
I found it interesting that even
yeah,
our cat finds a place on this rug, that there's something going on there. It's interesting.
finds comfort, finds
Mhm.
connection.
Yeah.
So that's that your rug is definitely a thing that matters. That's all about family connection and
Hmm.
history. So I imagine you know the answer quite quickly to because some of my other guests they're like they're just pens but they remind me of my grandmother, so
Yeah.
but I imagine so it's kind of hard asking them about the legacy question, my follow-up
Mhm.
question to show and tales, and that is what would you like to have happen with this thing that matters when you're dead and gone?
Well, I hope I have two children, two adult children, a son and a daughter. And I hope one of them, we've talked about it, I hope one of them takes this rug, or they split the time. Maybe for a while one has it, and then for another while the other one has it. But I really want them to take it. And then I'm hoping my grandsons, when their parents no longer want it, will give it to the grandsons. I want this to stay in the family, and I want them to understand why it's so important.
Yeah,
And so that they start, especially the grandsons, so they start to think about things that matter
yeah,
and why they matter,
yeah,
and what their connection is to generations past.
yeah.
They can ask about, oh, what about my great grandfather, that stood on this rug? What did he do?
Right.
That's my hope, is that the family keeps it, and just really understands that there are actual things within a family unit that matter.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. What is so shocking, even though you say it's lost its thickness,
Yes, a
um,
little bit.
the color is
Mhm.
just, I mean, that's the things about those rugs,
Yeah,
um
yeah,
they're just the color that it can keep. I mean, obviously it's probably faded, but I couldn't tell. It's
yeah. It's
looks
bright. It is
like
beautiful.
it
Yeah.
it's shocking what they can do with the dyes that keep that. It's
I
just
know. And it was
just
handmade. They made them by hand, and it's so big. I can't imagine how long it took to make it.
right.
Um,
It's
so
really
yeah.
amazing. And I love the idea of maybe sharing, like it goes, so what was it, like the something of the traveling pants, or like
Oh,
there's
right, right. Yeah.
right, there's like these stories, so
Yeah.
that like where people are like, oh, you have this thing for a while and then I get it back, and
Yeah,
through the family.
exactly.
So I love that concept as well.
Yeah.
So needless to say, I think there's stories everywhere, right? There's
Mhm.
stories and connection everywhere, and so many films end up using an object as sort of the
Yes.
focus of them, and novels and all of that. So I think
Yeah.
this is a perfect time for me to
Mhm.
turn the stage over to you once again, and tell my listeners and watchers about the important healing work that you do in the world.
Yeah. Okay. Well, um, I'm almost 75-year-old woman. And for a very long time, I had a executive corporate career, believe it or not. Sometimes I look back and I say, what was I doing? But it was fun, and exciting and rewarding and blah, blah, blah. And then at age 65, I was sitting there and it just hit me. I was not in an ageist company. I could still be there today if I wanted to be. But it hit me that I was 65. And that number I, there's something that happens. I don't know. You feel older. You know that you're older. You know that you have more time behind you than you have ahead of you. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh, well, is this it? And my colleagues kept reminding me that I was kept saying, I don't want to die at my desk. And and I thought I was kidding, but they were reminding me that you were saying something here. And I finally dealt with that and realized that I was questioning myself as to did I want this to be the last thing that I did? And I couldn't conceive of the word retirement for me. I didn't know what that meant. I couldn't even wrap my brain around it. So I started making lists of all the things that I fantasized about from the time I was a kid. And I said, well, why didn't I do these things? And they were, things like play the saxophone or, write a book or whatever. All things that probably your parents or the world wouldn't support you in, wouldn't tell you that that's a great path. Do that. But and movies, I've been fascinated with movies since I was very, very young. And I would say at about 9, I started reading about directors and movies, and I had this huge fantasy of being in a movie or writing a movie or doing something related to movies. And that fantasy always stayed with me. So how I dealt with that, I went to the movies a lot. I saw lots of movies. I love movies, but I never ever considered that, oh, I wasn't trained to be a filmmaker. But at 65, sitting at that desk, that word came to the top. And I finally said, what the heck? Why wouldn't I check it out? And then a funny thing happened. And the funny thing was, I left a meeting that in DC at Congress that I went to every year. And it was like deja vu, like, why aren't we moving forward on any of these issues? And why am I still here? And I'm not making an impact. I left early, came home, and went with a friend to pick her daughter up from school to drop her at the horse barn. And she said, I think they're making a movie over here. And we were on this dirt road, and I was like, whoa. So we pulled over, and sure enough, it looked like a movie set. And I realized that I thought I knew who it was, and because he's local, and it's M. Night Shyamalan. And so I looked up his website, and on his website, it showed a picture of where we were sitting, and it said that he was making a micro budget film in Chester County, Pennsylvania, and there was a little red button that said Charity Buzz. I pushed it, and it said, "Win a day on the set with M. Night Shyamalan." Now remember, I just started thinking about filmmaking. I came home early from the congressional meeting because I'd had enough. I end up sitting in front of a movie set in the woods. And then I have this on my iPhone saying, well, if you bid money and you win, you can win a day on the set with him. And the money would go to his education foundation, which I didn't even know about till I sat there reading about it. Short story, I won the day on the set with M. Night Shyamalan. Within a month, I was on the set with him for more than 8 hours. And at lunch, he said to me, "What do you do?" And I tried to explain this corporate executive thing to somebody who's only made films his whole life. And he kind of glazed over and he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, well, what do you really want to do?" And I said, "Oh, that's easy. I want your job." And he said, "Oh, well, you better hurry up." So that was the day that not only had I already been thinking about it, but now I've got a director who I've just spent a number of hours with behind the camera saying to me, "You better hurry up," because he knew how old I was. And it hit me that, well, he's right. If I want to try something new, it better be now. So I gave a year's notice because I built the division of the company at national in scope, and I needed to mentor somebody to take it over. And at the same time, I said out loud, I'm going to make a film. So I had that year to develop that as well as, get ready to walk away from this long career that I had. And my first film, Beyond 60, is about 9 women over the age of 60 and their stories and the power of their stories and the showing that they're still relevant. Even though they're somewhere between 63 and 87, they're still very, very relevant, doing very cool things and not stopping. And my whole point at that juncture, I was trying to become a filmmaker, and I thought the easiest thing to do would be to tell stories about women my age or older, because I would be able to relate to it, and I thought I would be able to manage it and handle it. So that's Beyond 60, and that's out there streaming on most platforms. And then it was, ooh, okay, now what? I did that and I got it distributed. It took a while, took about 3 years to do all of that. And then it was, well, maybe I should do another one. And this time, instead of bringing on, hiring a production company, direct and produce it myself, not just direct it. So I did. And I finished the film a little over a year and a half ago. And it's now been a whole year on film festivals. It's called Climbing into Life. And it is the story of the oldest woman to climb El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. And it's done really well on the film circuit. We have a bunch of awards at this point. We just got back from Calgary, and we have one more coming up in the fall. And I'm talking to distributors now about getting the film out for distribution. So, what I've learned through this process is never underestimate the amazing stories that are out there and how they can change how you feel about something. So the more stories we listen to, the more we have a chance to relate that to who we are and how we perceive things. And maybe there's something that somebody shared with us that will challenge the way we think about something or change the way we think about something. And that's how we grow. So to me, don't underestimate the power of storytelling because it is so important, just like this show that you have, Martie. Things that matter,
Yeah.
things that matter.
Oh, wow. Wow. And it's interesting because I have yet to watch Beyond 60. But I have had as we had mentioned earlier in this episode, had a chance to preview Climbing into Life. And it it really it's sort of it actually was the thing that I went to. There's a Camp Indie, as you know. I also live part-time in my camper van. You mentioned about my kitty cat, my flat cat, Flatsy. And so I'm part of the Location Indie community. And they have a yearly summer camp for adults. It's called Camp Indie. Location Indie has Camp Indie. And last year we were there, and there was this honey trek, the two people that went on a honeymoon, but instead of getting whatever, went all around the world, and talk about stories. But one of the things they ended up saying is that thing basically where with the filmmaker, and I can never pronounce his name, that you spoke with
Oh,
before.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Milan, that
Yeah.
he said, well, get to it. Like, you
Yeah.
better hurry up, kind of thing. And maybe I should have taken it better when these people said, we're going out saying, you don't want to wait until you're 60 to do these things. And I was like, I had to speak up. It was a talk. I said, that's bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
you should see the people that, the women that I know, and especially women. Sure, there's men doing the same thing. I do have a friend who's did the walk, the hike through along the Appalachian Trail. So
Oh,
yes, we've, definitely, and took a bike from the East Coast all the way to California. So yes, and there's no, this is the biggest thing, changing the narrative, right? Changing
mhm.
this, having the opportunity to change the narrative. Obviously, this goes hand in hand with our medical care, as
Yeah,
challenging as it is, we've improved the quantity, the length of our time. Like, look at your mom. Like, these are
I
things
know.
that are right. So we have this longevity. So we have this
Hmm.
ability to change the narrative and do anything. And that is why your films are so important. They're important. You do important healing work in the world, and I'm so grateful to know about it. And I'm going to watch the Beyond 60. And yes, so now as we close, I'm just going to have you take a minute to let people know how they can find out more, because I imagine, even though even though you're tired from this long thing, there might be even another film in the
Hmm.
hopper. I kind of
Hmm.
figured that's what my creative friends like you and Sky do. There's always something percolating, right? Or being planted, those seeds. So how can my listeners find out more and keep abreast of what's to come ahead of you?
The easiest way is on my website, and it's melissadavey.com. Melissadavey.com. Simple. And both trailers are on the website. Information about what's happening with each film, where you can find Beyond 60 and all of that. Just go to the website, and you can contact me through there as well.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Oh, well, I am so glad that we were able to make this work, make this time work, and have you here. And yes, looking forward to, although this is going to come out after we meet up in person, but that's okay.
Mhm.
Meeting you in New Hampshire in a couple of weeks
Yeah, that's going to be
in
fun.
person. That's going to be great. So thank you again, Melissa, for joining me, and it's a pleasure knowing you. And thanks everyone for taking the time to look and listen to this episode of Things That Matter. And do take a moment to look around your house, look around your space, your offices, even your person, your the pocketbook, your backpack,
Mhm.
all the things that we surround ourselves with, and think about it. Obviously can't always be an heirloom like this lovely rug that Melissa brought, but the reality is everything has a story, and we
Mhm.
all have stories to share, and please keep on sharing them. So thanks again,
Thank
Melissa.
you. Thanks so much.
All right, have a great rest of your day,
You too.
everyone. Thanks.